Welcome, friends. This week we're beginning a new sermon series, a series that I believe is one of the most important set of talks that we've presented in some time, at least as it pertains to our understanding of the church. You know, we live at a time when the relevance and value of the church in American culture is being questioned at a level that it never before has been, at least not in our lifetimes. And this questioning, it's appropriate, it's necessary, and I'd say even good, because it's unhealthy and unrealistic for any organization to exist indefinitely without its relevance and value being examined. Is there still a place for the church in our culture and our experience? Is there still value to be found in this almost 2,000-year-old institution? Now, if these questions were answered according to church attendance, the answer would clearly be no. Numerous church attendance studies could be cited to prove this point, but here's what we all know. Church attendance in America has been on the steady decline for the better part of 50 years. And following the pandemic, that decline is accelerating. It would seem our culture no longer values the church or no longer values it at the level it once did. Now, it's not that people are overtly saying the church has no value. They're just, by their lack of attendance and engagement, saying the church doesn't have enough value in their minds to justify the time and effort required to be involved. And you know what? They may be right. Maybe the church's time is over. Maybe the church is an organizational construct of a culture that has long since vanished, and the church's meaningful purpose is done. I don't suggest these thoughts rhetorically or simply as a means of getting your attention. These are honest questions I and perhaps many of you have been asking for some time. I've been asking them with particular intensity over the last 3 years. What is the church? Why is it here? What is its purpose? And does that purpose still have relevance today? Why should people still attend church, support the church, engage with the church? As one who's dedicated his life to serving the church, you can understand why these questions have had an existential urgency for me. Many a long walk has been taken contemplating these thoughts. And please believe me when I say that I have tried to ask these questions with as much honesty and integrity as possible, trying to be fully willing to accept answers that might suggest that the church, or at least the church in its present form, is no longer of significant value or no longer has a meaningful place in our current culture at this point in time. Trying to answer these questions for myself led me to a more foundational question. What exactly is the church? And that question led me to Jesus, whose first followers founded this almost 2,000-year-old institution. What did Jesus actually say and do? What did Jesus really teach that led his followers to create the community that would become known as the church? Now, the answers I discovered to these questions we presented in last month's sermon series. And if you didn't have a chance to hear all of those talks, it's really important that you go back and listen to them in order to fully understand what we're saying in this present series. The first thing I discovered that Jesus taught was that everything is spiritual. Behind, around, under, and through the world we can physically see, touch, or logically comprehend, there's a very real spiritual world that can actually be seen and engaged with if one is aware of and connected to its presence. I have a good friend who has a telescope. Not like the telescope you got for Christmas when you were 10 years old, but a really serious, powerful, big-time telescope. In fact, here's a picture of it. It's quite a machine. Now, she regularly sends me pictures of things that seem to be not there. In other words, when I look up into the night sky, I see something like this. This is a picture I took recently of the night sky. Not much there, is there? Now, when she looks at the night sky through her telescope, she sees things like this. This picture shows objects in space light years away. Now, these things have been there all the time, but I never saw them until she showed them to me with her telescope. Jesus was trying to get people to see what has been there all the time. Central to all of his teaching was the idea that there is a greater reality, a spiritual reality, an eternal reality, a heavenly reality, and being aware of and connected to that greater reality gives life its ultimate dimension, purpose, and security. Living aware of and connected to that greater spiritual reality was so important for Jesus that he talked about it in terms of salvation. A person's life was saved from disillusionment, discouragement, destruction, and defeat when one became aware of and integrated into this larger spiritual reality. But how was one supposed to do that? How do you do that? How do you become aware of and connected to this larger spiritual reality? Well, you need a telescope. You need a means to see, to observe, to study and begin to understand this greater reality that exists, this reality that according to Jesus is the source of our life's fulfillment, is the source of our very salvation. I think the church is a telescope that helps us discern and engage with this greater spiritual reality. It functions as this spiritual telescope by providing for us a system for spirituality. A system for spirituality. If everything is spiritual, and if being aware of and connected to this spiritual dimension is the path to human salvation, or as Jesus put it, life to its fullest, then it seems that a system is necessary to help us develop this essential connection and awareness. After all, we know from our experience that the right system is needed to produce a desired outcome in any situation. This is true in all areas of life. Consider just one example. Let's think for a minute about high school football. The goal or the desired outcome of a high school football program is to be able to play football games on Friday night, win those games, and develop players physically, emotionally, mentally, morally along the way. So, how is that goal or outcome achieved? Does the coach say, anyone who wants to play football, just show up at Friday night's game, wear something you're comfortable playing in, and bring whatever knowledge, understanding, and experience of football you have. We'll put 11 of you out on the field and see what happens. Of course, that's not the way it works. What the coach says is that if you want to be on the team, if you want to play a Friday night game and win it, we're going to have you first engage in a system that will help us achieve that outcome. So we'll start practicing in the summer. We'll go to the practice field every day after school. We'll memorize plays. We'll lift weights. We'll focus our mental and emotional energies on developing a strategy to win. We'll follow a system because we need a system to achieve the results we desire. And by the way, participation in this system will not be optional. If you want to play and win, you'll be part of this system. The system of practice, it becomes necessary to achieve the desired outcome of winning the Friday night game. Now, we're all in a sort of football game, aren't we? We call it the game of life. We play it every day. And all of us want to win. All of us want to succeed. And we want to develop and grow along the way. So guess what? We need a system to achieve that. A system that helps us see life for what it really is, encompassed in a spiritual reality. The church, following the teachings of Jesus, it offers us such a system. In fact, to offer humanity such a system seems to be the primary purpose for which the church was organized and created. Consider this oft-quoted passage from the book of Acts. Acts, or the Acts of the Apostles as it is officially called, is a historical book in the New Testament that records what the first followers of Jesus did in the years immediately after his life on earth. And one of the first things it tells us is that the first followers of Jesus, they formed a group, a community, a loosely structured organization that did the following things. Listen. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Good systems need two things. They need a place and they need a practice. Whether this is a system for getting in shape, a system for managing your finances, or a system for cleaning your house, you need a regular and consistent place to engage with the system, and you need a predictable and repeatable practice by which the system is performed. A system for spirituality needs the same two things, a place and a practice. The passage we just read shows that the early church provided people with these two essential things. The place would be the temple courts. There was a defined and visible meeting place, visibly, intentionally, and regularly. This new community would gather at this specific place, the temple courts. The practice would be listening to and enacting the apostles' teaching, which was the apostles' understanding of the teachings of Jesus. The first followers of Jesus would predictably and repeatedly meet together in the temple courts to learn how to live out the teachings of Jesus in their cultural setting. They were showing up at practice in order to win at the game of life. This first century group, this community, this loosely defined organization becomes what we know today as the church. And we're still doing the same two things. Meeting together regularly, place, as we learn to apply the teachings of Jesus. Practice. Why do we do this? Because we need a system for spirituality. Does it have to be this system? Does it have to be the place and practice the church provides? Maybe not. Maybe there are other ways to stay aware of connected to and engaged with the spiritual dimension of life that Jesus talked about. Just like there may be other ways to win Friday night football games besides holding practices every day after school. I don't know. But what I do know is this. You cannot stay aware of, connected to, and engaged with a greater spirituality without some type of system to enable you to do that. As James Clear in his book Atomic Habits so poignantly puts it, we do not rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. We can value and believe in a greater spiritual reality, but without a system to connect us to that reality, we're just engaged in wishful thinking. And while I think most people in our present culture would agree that there is a greater spiritual reality behind the world we can see, touch, and manipulate, and most people would place a high value on being aware of and connected to that reality, without a system, without a place and a practice for making that awareness and connection happen, we are just people looking at an empty night sky. And an empty night sky is not very helpful or reassuring at a point of time like we're presently experiencing. Global unrest, natural disasters, divisive politics, labor disputes, an uncertain economy. We need something to help us. We need something to stabilize us. We need something to sustain us. We need something to root us and ground us in a larger reality. In short, we need something to save us. Could that be the church and the system for spirituality that the church provides? Could the church be the means by which we're enabled to see what is really there? St. Cyprian of Carthage wrote these infamous and somewhat controversial words in the 3rd century, writing in Latin. He said, "Salus extra ecclesiam non est," which translated is, there is no salvation outside the church, or outside the church, there is no salvation. Now, I'm not enough of a scholar of the ancient church fathers to know exactly what Cyprian intended by this phrase. And I don't reference it to give credence to all of the ways it's been understood, applied, and interpreted throughout history. But the statement does make you think, doesn't it? Maybe there is some sense in which St. Cyprian was pointing us to something really important, if not absolute. What if the church, with the system for spirituality that it provides, with its place and practice, what if the church really is the means of our salvation? If it is, then the place and priority of the church in our lives must be carefully considered. All of us need to ask, what are we seeing when we look at the night sky? And how are we being helped to see what is really there? These are critical questions for all of us, but they're perhaps especially crucial questions for parents of children to consider. How are you helping your children see, discover, understand, and engage with the spiritual dimension of life? How are you helping your children find the salvation that Jesus promised would come through engagement with this spiritual reality? What activities or practices have we replaced our children's consistent involvement in church with? Do we really believe that the things that have taken the place of the church in our children's lives will have the same power the church has to guide them, sustain them, encourage them, and help them when life becomes difficult and challenging? What are we as a family doing in place of or instead of engaging with the church? Will those things save us? Are we providing our children with access to the things that can truly make a difference for the rest of their lives? Or are we raising children who will show up for the game of life having never attended a practice? These are really important questions to be asking. And don't think for a minute that these questions demand an either-or choice. They do not. The decision is not, is my child going to play travel team sports or go to church? The question is not, will we ski on the weekends as a family or go to church? The choice is not, can I do the thing I want to do or do I have to go to church instead? The question is not, what will I do in place of the other? But how do I do both and? And amazingly, we're living at a time when you really can do both and. Consider a few examples. With our online service, you can engage with the place and practices of the church anytime and anywhere. So if your child is involved in an activity that prevents them from being involved in McLean Kids on Saturday night or Sunday morning, why not say, okay, as a family, we're going to do the travel sports team on the weekend, but when we get home on Sunday night, we're going to sit down at the kitchen table and engage in McLean Church Online, including the incredible programming for kids that is available online. And we are going to do that regularly and consistently every Sunday night as long as we cannot physically attend church services, because our family needs a system for spirituality. Both and, not either or. Or think about this. We offer a service on Saturday night in Edinburgh. In Union City, we offer McLean Kids programming at the Estates on Thursday evenings. A church near the ski area that I often ski offers a Sunday afternoon service on the slopes. If traditional church times don't work for you, engage in one of these alternatives. As a church, we're committed to growing the list of these alternative opportunities we offer, because we believe the choice does not need to be either or, but it does need to be a choice to value the importance of the church. If Jesus was right that everything is spiritual, then I need a system to engage in this greater spiritual reality. I need a telescope to see more than a blank night sky. By providing a place and practice, the church offers this system that I and my family needs. Now, the choice is mine to engage in the system the church offers or not, but to not have a system is the choice to remain disengaged from the reality that Jesus described as the source of our hope, our purpose, and our peace. Again, in short, our salvation. We live at a time when many of us are wondering if the church still matters. Fewer people regularly attend church now than at any point in our lifetime. The consequence of this is that people are living increasingly unaware of and disconnected from the spiritual reality Jesus talked about. And the results of this devaluing of spiritual systems, this devaluing of church, well, the results speak for themselves. One need only do an honest evaluation of our culture, starting perhaps with our public discourse, to see the effect that living disconnected from the spiritual dimension of life has had on all of us. Maybe it's time to re-engage. Maybe it's time to recommit to a system for spirituality. Maybe it's time to get back to church.